Come on, Engine Masters, how much power are you giving up to look this cool with your header? You know what, Engine Masters, we take horsepower very seriously. And in many episodes, you'll find us finding that nuance that just gets that very last edge of performance. And other times we test a bunch of goofy headers just because we can. And that's what this episode is gonna be all about. See, sometimes you choose an exhaust header for cosmetic purposes instead of really for performance. And on this episode, we're gonna find out what you're actually paying in horsepower in order to have that kind of looks. We got tri-wise, we got Lakes pipes, we got Zoomies, we got gasser headers, we got T-bucket headers. But of course, the engine that we're using as a baseline is our traditional 383 small block Chevy, because let's be honest, this is the engine configuration that's probably in most of the cars that are gonna pick headers like this. It's our regular old 383. You've seen us run it dozens of times. It makes about 450 horsepower. So the headers that we're gonna test will begin with the T-bucket header. Now, I call it the T-bucket header so that you can sort of visualize it as a goofy cosmetic header. But in truth, this is what we call our dyno header. We have tested it. This setup makes more power than a typical under chassis header of the same size, which is why we always use it on the dyno. It's got that really long straight segment right out of the ports that tends to make horsepower. So that's gonna be our baseline. These are a 1 3/4 inch tube, and they've got a welded on collector extension. And you'll see us using collector extensions on all the different headers. So that is gonna be the bogey to beat. Next up, we are going to try the Tri-Y. I wouldn't put this in the category of a cosmetic goofy header, but it is a design that has been around for a long, long time that many people want to understand and know about, because there are so many claims that this design makes a ton of low-end torque. Now, to be fair, they're typically used in applications like tow trucks and things with much smaller, lower-powered engines than what we're dealing with here, but I still wanted to find out. These are automatically gonna have a disadvantage because they have a 1 5/8 inch primary tube. However, you will note why this is called a Tri-Y. This has a pair of cylinders that are coupled into one Y right here. Then this pair of cylinders is coupled into that Y right there. Then it goes into a 2-inch tube, and all four are coupled right here into the third Y, hence Tri-Y. I have no idea what this is gonna do. This is a Doug's header for an application of a GMG body. Let's call it a Monte Carlo or something like that. It also has the smallest collector of anything in our test. It's 2.5 inches, but we're gonna run it with a little extension. So that's the Tri-Y. Now we get into the real decorative stuff. This is a Sanderson header that is called a Lakes type header typically. Sometimes it's called a Limefire header. The design is based on the drive shaft from a 35 or 36 Ford, which is tapered like this. So back in the 50s, hot rodders would build their headers out of an old drive shaft. Pretty interesting. The main tubes are all 1 5/8 and they feed directly into that cone-shaped deal. In case you're wondering, we do have the bypass capped off right here because we didn't want the flow to be interrupted at the end and possibly hamper performance. So that's the Lakes header. Next up, the Zoomie. So Zoomie headers are really short headers that have no collector whatsoever. You'll often see these on dragsters that have more of an up sweep design or sometimes a low and down sweep design. These ones right here are from Schonenfeld headers. They are dirt cheap and they are 1 3/4 inch tubes. It's gonna be really interesting to find out what kind of power it makes with no collector whatsoever. And finally, the header of my personal choice, the fender well header. This is a unit for a Tri-5 Chevy. It would be in what most people call a gasser style. So you can see, you remove your inner fender well, bolt that to the engine, it goes up and out right behind the tire. I suspect this is pretty solid because it's got those really long straight tubes on it. We're gonna end up testing this with and without a collector. And again, that's a 1 3/4 inch tube. So, there you go, the roundup of cosmetic headers, and we're gonna kick it all off with our 3D3 wearing the sprint car tubes. This one's just for fun, bunch of goofy headers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to learn much other than what happens when you install weird headers on your rat rod. So step one are the headers that we would normally call dyno headers, but in truth, those are like sprint car or maybe T-bucket headers.
Yeah, that's actually the way they're described.
Well, I'm convinced this is going to be our best header, so it's probably the appropriate baseline.
I hope it's not.
Really?
Yeah, but I think it probably will be.
You're in for a surprise?
I know what you're rooting for.
Yes.
I already know. Fenderwell Dave.
Exactly. Okay, Steve, give us a baseline.
Okay, here we go.
So this is going to be our baseline with our dyno headers, which are also like T-bucket headers. Okay, let's have a look. Here's our baseline power, not a big surprise considering that the last time we ran this, it had a single plane intake manifold and it was making 470. The dual plane hacked it down a little bit. It's making 451.4 horsepower, 5,900 RPM, and the torque is 470.9 at 4,200 RPM. It is what it is. The question is, the only question is, which header do you want to run first? Do you want to go from presumed worst to presumed best?
I want to get the tri-wise out of the way.
Because those are the presumed worst.
They just irritate me.
Okay, tri-Y headers coming up.
That was a good answer. Oh, that was noisy. Oh, okay. Take her away, Troy.
Look what I found. Here's a shocker. I found some 2.5-inch tube collector extensions here at Westech. There'd be no reason to actually run this in real life. But I'm gonna throw them on here just to give these headers some chance of making a ton of low-end torque. Because as we found out in a prior test, collector extensions make a huge difference in low end.
Okay, let's go. This is gonna be great.
Are you still irritated by them?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, well, let's have a look.
You're going to be more irritated when you see the numbers.
I think so, too.
Not that bad.
467.5 pound-feet of torque, 445.3 horsepower. So the peaks are surprising me a little bit. But let's look at the curve compared with the T-bucket header. Best possible header versus tri-Y. Here it goes. Ooh. So the black lines are the tri-Ys, down as you would expect, and the red is the dyno header. Kind of, yeah, you saw a little bit of a dip right there, which is interesting because the tri-Y is supposed to be famous for making power right there, and it does not. I'm surprised that it matches throughout here, and I'm surprised that the peaks, how much are they down? 5 numbers? 5 or 6 numbers.
T-bucket headers are definitely better.
But by nowhere near the margin I expected.
No, they aren't as bad as I thought.
I can't be as irritated by the tri-Y as I wanted to be.
I know, and I'm disappointed that I can't be either.
Right. How about you? What's your irritation level?
Oh, 0. I kind of like it, actually. Oh, look at that. It's right there with the dyno header.
So you don't care whatsoever. You've got a little bit of a rash. Okay.
Admittedly, that's pretty decent if you can hang with the dyno header that close.
Not bad. So what do you want to do next?
We should do yours next.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No, we're going to end with those. No.
Well, you're outvoted, really.
Right. Yeah, you know, you're right. You and I both know that this is not a democracy. So I might as well just go put the Zoomie.
Okay, let's go bolt on.
No, I was thinking Lakes pipes.
Oh,
we
I
forgot about
the
those.
lakes pipes.
See?
Those are awesome.
Right. It all comes back to the front.
Those are awesome.
All right, let's go get the Lakes pipes and throw them on here. Make the tri-Ys look great.
Okay, it was terrible, but do you care?
No, it's just so cool looking. I don't care.
It doesn't matter. It's a decorative item. It made 445.6 pound-feet of torque, 425.8 horsepower, way down. Let's see how bad it really is if we compare it to the dyno headers, which are like the greatest. Oof. That is terrible. Clearly, the black line is the Lakes header, red line is the dyno header. This is kind of interesting.
But it's good for drivability.
Yeah, it made more torque below 3,500 RPM. That's kind of a surprise. But did you hear at the top?
Oh, it labored hard trying to rev up to the red line.
Yeah, it's like it really didn't want to run. It was like, oh! And I think that's because of the way the three pipes enter. They're not dead 90s, but remember we learned on the single exhaust how bad it hurts
90.
flow when you just 90 the pipe like that?
Yeah, that's almost 90, particularly the ones right in the center there.
Yeah, that's just going to kill it.
I think they're just cool, that's all.
But the Zoomies are cooler?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to the Zoomies next.
Steve-O, are you ready for the raciest looking headers we've got?
Those are my favorites.
The Zoomies. These are gonna sound terrible, they'll kill power, but they'll look the coolest.
We need a header gasket.
Right, we're firing up the Zoomies to burn the paint off of them and hopefully shoot fire. First of all, the important stuff, I think the Zoomies win for fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The Lakes pipes were pretty good, but nothing like this.
Yeah, and some style points too, you have to admit, right?
Yeah. No, that definitely got like rat rod style points.
I was thinking a lot like a funny car driver. Handbrake,
With
throttle,
450
flames.
horsepower.
Well, you know, a new funny car driver.
Okay, let's see what kind of power they made. There we go, 457.8 pound-feet and 440.7 horsepower, and I'm surprised how nice the curve
Pretty
looks.
curved.
Really nice.
Yeah, that's kind of a shocker.
It's pretty good way down at the bottom at 3,000. It was still
Surprising.
pretty good. Yeah, for being so short.
Here we go, compare it to the dyno header. There we go, black lines are the Zoomies, red lines are the excellent dyno header, and I'm surprised at this right here that something with no collector at all made more low-end torque.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked.
That's confusing.
Yeah, that goes to show you never can predict the results sometimes.
Never say always is what that means, yeah. I would have said they'll kill low end and make the same peak but be down throughout the curve. That's what I would have guessed before we started, but obviously it killed power everywhere except for below 3,500 RPM.
Who knows?
Who knows?
The bizarro world of
This bizarro world.
It still wins for cool, though.
No, the coolest is what we're going to do next, which is the fender well for the gassers.
Oh, no.
Which are going to make the most power.
And look cool doing it.
Or humiliate me.
Well, we'll find out in
That's
a
likely.
couple of minutes here.
All right, you want to cool this down, and I'll go grab the Doug's gasser header. So far, I have to say, every one of these headers has had pretty good bolt fitment. You know, typically there's one that just doesn't want to go in, but these have all been easy. Have you guys run into a bad one?
No, you picked headers that are really pretty easy to install all the way around.
I scienced that just for you. Ready? Ooh, I like these.
David always has the most fun on an episode when he gets to pick the winning part first.
How do you know it wins?
Well, because you picked it.
Once again, you can never say always.
Yeah, that's a dangerous
It's a
statement.
lesson I often forget.
Yeah, it's a dangerous statement in engine technology.
The numbers, please, Mr. Brule.
Yeah.
Yeah, looked good, especially coming on the roll in. It looked really good.
We'll do it.
I like watching you do this.
Yeah, 457 pound-feet of torque, 452.6 horsepower. The Zoomies had a nicer looking curve.
Yeah.
They had none of this.
Yeah.
I didn't even see this. I saw this number when I rolled in. That kind of drove past. Then I saw this one. I obviously saw that, but.
How about overlay it on the dyno headers? It's always the answer. Dyno headers in red and my fender well units in black. Boy, did they throw away a lot of power, but they made the same from about 4,700 up.
And we're a little bit right at the bottom. They were better, but torque-wise,
Just destroyed.
destroyed.
You know,
I know how to fix this. Maybe.
Maybe.
maybe. I know where you're going with it with the extensions, but what I'm more interested than anything is when the extensions are on it, is it going to actually lower this and pick this up? Is it in this area right there, is it going to do something?
I think
Stop
so.
pretending to know. He's pretending to know.
Bad move.
Bad move.
We should go put extensions on and see what
think it's a good
happens with
idea.
that.
I think, yeah, what we're gonna do next is put header collector extensions on there, which is gonna do something down here. We just don't know what.
Yeah.
Collector extension makes this thing a beast.
Quite a difference.
Look at that. 471.8 pound-feet to torque, 450.4 horsepower, and let's have a look at it without the collector extensions with the same header. Wow. That is just nothing more than bolting on an 18-inch tube on the end of the header. The red line is without the collector extensions, black is with, and look, once again, it's doing something weird down here.
It did exactly what I had hoped it would do, was lose some, and it's that whole.
It is, it's crazy. I mean, we found this out when we did the whole episode about collector extensions.
Yeah.
But man, that is a lot of meat right there. That makes the car go faster or do better burnouts anyway.
It makes it do a lot of stuff better.
Wow, that's great.
And picked up the peak torque number, a big number too.
Yeah.
This is huge. That's going to be the thing that everyone looks at. This is the most interesting to me. A collector extension that lost power below 3,200.
I think we need to go cut it shorter. Why?
We've done that episode.
It made sense though, it worked.
But where do you end up with it?
I know.
You know, then it ends up someplace in between. But this is what I was kind of.
Well, no, I'm more thinking that it adds it up here back. But you don't know.
We're talking 2 horsepower. That could be.
Yeah.
Just it flip-flop those completely. I mean, it just swap.
Which made the curve kind of more similar to our dyno headers.
Yeah. In fact, I bet when we look at that.
We need to look at that. Okay, so pull off the one without the collector extensions. And right now we're going to compare the fender well header with collector extensions to our dyno headers, or what we've been calling T-bucket or sprint car headers. There you go. The fender well headers make more torque than Steve's favorite dyno headers.
Actually,
look at that.
Got a better average over the curve.
Yes, it
it's
does.
almost identical.
Actually, I think I have new dyno headers.
These are them.
I think so.
I know, except for that they're horrible to work around.
Oh, they are.
Because they burn you right in the giblets. But aside from that,
You can't get to anything, but they really are good on power.
man, look at that.
Wow.
That is awesome. Black lines are my fender well headers, and the red is like our world's greatest dyno header that we use every single time. And they absolutely match above 4,000 RPM, and from 3,000 to 4,000, the fender wells make more power, and then there's still a weird little wobble right here where if we pulled it even lower.
It's so
that's the entry
insignificant
number on the
there.
dyno
Yeah.
also, so you don't even know.
I really didn't think what I saw was going to be this much better than the dyno header, because this number looked pretty similar, The peak number looked pretty similar over there, and it was almost identical up here. So I thought it was going to be kind of an overlay, but boy, there's a chunk of meat there.
What I want to know now is on these fender well headers, the collector extension always needs to turn and go back down below the tire. I wonder how much just that turn makes a difference. What I do know, though, is it's worth having it on there even with the turn.
So it doesn't blow all the...
Yeah. Well, so it doesn't blow everything up. You couldn't put it on the car like this. The collector extension would almost be dragging the ground.
Okay,
Yeah,
Right.
so you gotta get it level with the rocker panel.
I don't think having that turn is going to make any difference.
Or if it does, it's not as bad as no collector extension at all.
Certainly. So
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I don't see it making a lot of difference if it's a nice transition and that same length. So no, that's impressive. That's a good header.
Yeah, it sure is.
Can we overlay every header that we've tested here just for grins? Now we've got a graph here that's sort of confusing to look at. It's got every header that we have tested here. Let me go through the colors for you. Black is going to be our best ones, the fender well headers with the extensions on it. Then we've got red is the Zoomies, blue is the Tri-Y, green is the lake type header, and magenta is our standard baseline dyno header. Guys, thoughts?
The only thing I see is, with the exception of the Tri-Y, every other header that makes more down low makes less up top. And conversely, the ones that make the most up top make the least down low.
Look at what else we saw here, which is that the Tri-Y, advertised forever as making tons of low-end torque, did not.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. And the Zoomie, with the shortest tubes and no collector, which is not supposed to make any low-end torque, did.
You know, I think it's fair to say, too, if we put a camshaft in here with another 20 degrees duration and a wider exhaust spread, different lobe separation angle,
it all changes.
We could we're going to see different results. So, so specific.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway is there's power on the table, obviously, from the spread of the various curves, but these are just funky headers that you pick for a particular purpose. So, you know, it just depends on what you want for your own car or whatever you're trying to do. I mean, you're not going to interchange them as equivalent kinds of parts, right?
No, I was just curious. They're all novelty headers.
Right.
None of these are ones that you're going, ooh, I'm going to race. How can I fine-tune this with my lake pipe? You know, nobody's doing that. These are all just for decoration, with the exception of the victorious and dominant fender well header.
Oh, yeah, if you had a Tri-5.
He's completely discounting the sprint headers, just like they don't exist.
They're junk. Did you see how much power they threw away?
Yeah, that torque, Steve-O. I mean, how can you excuse that?
Okay, you win.
But on a bigger engine with more power, they might make that torque, but they're not going to make the top end. So I guess what we're saying is the results will vary. But in general, you can get the idea here. I think the Lakes pipes are, if you took the Lakes pipes versus a chassis header in virtually any application, they're going to kill power.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I think the same is true with the Zoomies.
You know what's fair, though? Is sometimes it's not about power. Sometimes it's just about being cool. And the Lake pipes and the Zoomies are cool.
So it comes back to, you look marvelous, as we do every time on Engine Masters.
You look marvelous.
As I look into my eyes.
As I look into my eyes,
I look marvelous.
That's fine.
Okay.
That was good. That was a good come off the looking good. That was kind of fun. Well, you know, it was a perfect out. That was just perfect.
That was good. Look marvelous.
This time on Engine Masters, light makes might. You know that making your car weigh less makes it go faster. But do lightweight engine components make more power? We're here to find out. It should come as no surprise to you that I bench race engines in my head all the time. And when I'm shopping for dream stuff, I always think to myself, should I get that 38-pound crankshaft instead of the 42? Should I get the aluminum connecting rods instead of the steel? Should I get the tiny damper? Should I get the aluminum flywheel instead of the heavy steel one? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Do lightweight engine components actually make more power? Do they help the engine rev faster? Well, I couldn't really literally build entire engines with different components to figure this out. So let me tell you exactly how we're gonna do it. We're gonna use this small block Chevy, and I'll tell you all about what that is. And we're gonna start with this 10-pound harmonic balancer. Then we're gonna change it to this 1-pound aluminum drive hub. It's meant for circle track cars, just to be able to run accessories and things. It has no damping ability, and it's super lightweight. Next up, we're gonna take the steel flywheel and the big Dyno drive hub that weighs 44 pounds, and we're gonna change it up for this 2-pound little drive hub. And then we're gonna run the engine and find out, does it actually make more power to ditch all that weight? And that's a big, big chunk of weight. Probably more than you can actually eliminate in your reciprocating assembly in your engine, but it's gonna give you a scale to see how much this is really worth it. And to find out, we're gonna accelerate this engine at 2 different rates on the dyno. 300 RPM per second and 600 RPM per second, and compare the two. We'll explain more about that once I sit down with the Steves. So, what is the engine that we're using for this big test? This is a Westech mill that's been around, and it's got 10,000 dyno pulls on it. We really are impressed with the reliability of this thing. It is a Dart SHP 372 cubic inch small block Chevy. The whole short block you can buy from Dart as is. They run fantastic. Up in the top end, we've got AFR, Airflow Research 195 street heads. We have an Edelbrock dual plane RPM air gap intake manifold. We got a 750 Holley XP. The camshaft in this thing is from Comp Cams. It's a hydraulic roller with solid roller lifters on it. You can see that trick in an earlier episode of Engine Masters. And its duration is 242 at 50 on the intake. So this thing should make neighborhood of 500 horsepower. We're gonna put it on the dyno right now with these heavy parts on it, and second, change it up to the light stuff and see what happens. All right, we got our 377 on the dyno for the baseline. You've tested this thing 10,000 times.
A few.
So there's gonna be no surprises here. No. The thing I want to describe to the audience at this point is, how are we gonna tell the difference in power between the heavy components and the lightweight components? It's more than just straight horsepower on the curve.
It's gonna show up in one of two ways, acceleration rate or horsepower. And since we have a controlled acceleration rate, we're going to look at a power difference. So what I'm gonna do is accelerate the engine at 2 different RPMs, 300 and 600 RPM per second.
Like we just threw together the COVID 350 and the 56 Chevy. How fast did that thing tack in the car?
Oh man, it had the aluminum flywheel and it was just zinged up there like crazy. But I mean, you've done drag racing, right? And you've done land speed racing. And it's kind of an analogy what we're doing right here. I mean, land speed racing, weight of the car is not as much of a factor as in drag racing. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, you're not overcoming inertia, which is what we're talking about here, but even more specifically about land speed racing versus drag racing. In land speed, like at 250 miles an hour, I'll gain 300 RPM in 30 seconds, whereas in drag racing, the engine's going, you know, it's revving fast. That's basically what we're gonna duplicate on the dyno here. Is 300 RPM per second is a slower than realistic acceleration rate, and 600 is, I don't even know what the scale is in a real car.
I think even 600 is slower than first gear in a Pro Stock car.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, something that extreme.
But 600 is actually a pretty quick acceleration rate. That's actually a common test acceleration rate for comp eliminator Pro Stock style engines.
Okay, so what we're gonna see when you go in the room is, first you're gonna run it at 300 RPM per second, then you'll reestablish your temperatures and everything, and then you'll run it at 600, and we'll look at both plots.
Exactly.
Cool, we're ready.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, don't blow it up, Steve.
That's happened enough today.
This is it. This is our baseline with a regular weight flywheel and a normal harmonic balancer. So that was our first test at an acceleration rate of 300 RPM per second, and the power numbers are 500.4 horsepower at 6,600 RPM, and it made 466.2 pound-feet of torque at 4,500 RPM. And now we're gonna find out how that changes when we accelerate it twice as fast at 600 RPM per second. was interesting how much power it loses when you do that.
It was more than I would have expected, I think,
like it,
just
yeah.
judging by the numbers flashing by. But I like the higher acceleration rate for the sound of that thing zinging up. But
Yeah.
I think I like the power numbers at the slower rate
I know.
better.
You always like the best power number regardless of whether it's realistic in the actual
Oh,
world.
yeah, who cares about that?
That was 600 RPM per second, and our peak numbers have changed. Now we're looking at 457.7 pound-feet of torque at 4,300 RPM, and the horsepower dropped to 488.3 at 6,500 RPM. Now, the data part of the program. Right here, we've got the black line representing 300 RPM per second acceleration rate, which would be the standard that you normally see on the show. The red line is 600 RPM per second. So what are you seeing?
I see that it takes a whole lot more power to accelerate something quickly. Like I said, it's going to show it in one of two ways, either an acceleration rate if you're not controlling it, or power if you are. So we actually went from 300 to 600, and the power went way down. And basically what that tells us is this is the engine's inability to accelerate its own mass. The faster you try to accelerate, the more power loss there actually is shown.
You?
Yeah. I'm surprised by how much it is, really. I've never done this specific test and looked at it, and
It's big.
It's big, yeah. It's really big.
Okay, very cool. So let's go change it from Cadillac mode to bicycle mode by removing the flywheel and the damper.
Oh, you're going to love what I did for bicycle mode.
I can't wait to see it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Great.
This is going to be simple. Let's go.
All right. Whoa, Steve-O. I was expecting maybe an aluminum flywheel or something, but you just have a drive hub.
Well,
Where'd you get that?
we wanted to reduce the weight, so
That's
On-
reducing it.
on my old race boat, we had these PTOs. It's an 1 3/8 10 spline. And so thinking about this test, I thought, let's try and make it as light as possible. So I really wouldn't recommend doing this as a normal practice, but for one dyno session, you know, a few pulls, I think we're okay with it. It basically has no dampening at all. You may want to take a look at this thing. It's
And the center
it's
of
nothing
mass
but a
is-
steel hub. There is no center mass. We basically removed the whole drive hub, you know, the drive plate,
Yeah.
the whole flywheel. We've removed everything. All there is splines in the back of the crank.
Well, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
Now we've got the lightweight components on the engine, and we're going to go for the base 300 RPM per second pull.
Now, how can you tell that relay likes it?
I know, because he's playing with it. How come it just makes the engine so much more wicked?
It just does. It
It's
sounds
cool.
way better, too.
Yeah.
Dude.
Makes good power.
Yeah, it does.
That's cool.
Wow.
That's really cool.
That's a heck of a lot.
Thing is, it's 44 pounds off the back.
I know, but
Yeah.
to me, it seemed like it was better at the hit, too.
Yeah, it
which
seemed like
it's
it was.
static right there.
That was 300 RPM per second, our baseline with the lightweight components on the engine, and we made 478.9 pound-feet of torque at 4,400 RPM and 516.2 horsepower at 6,600 RPM. Next up, the faster run, 600 RPM per second with the lightweight components. So on our faster 600 RPM per second pull, we made 474.7 pound-feet of torque at 4,600 RPM and 511.4 horsepower at 6,500.
So 300 light.
Yeah, the first thing we should look at is the test we just did at 300 RPM per second with the lightweight components, or should I say the non-existent components?
That makes them light.
Right. They are vapor.
Yeah, it's
So they're came up quite a bit. New power peak for this engine, though, 516.2. It's never been there before, at least not with this particular combo.
Right.
Now, this is going to be the comparison of the heavyweight parts versus the super lightweight parts. Wow. Train tracks, absolute, the same, except for right off the hit.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. So if it wasn't obvious, the red lines are with the full weight flywheel and drive plate, 44 pounds worth, and with a 10-pound damper versus the components that weigh a couple pounds each.
I'm glad you decided to put this kind of like on the test schedule.
Yeah.
We've done this before, just kind of like with the acceleration rate stuff, but we've never taken the time to put that small of a balancer, or hub, I should say, on it, and actually really try and lighten the components. And taking all that flywheel stuff off, I mean, it sounded like a sprint car when I touched the throttle.
It was great. Yeah.
It sounded like a mini top fuel the way you could whack it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it was great. So I did the math on the difference between these two. We lost 12.7 pound-feet and 15.8 horsepower by adding heavyweight parts, or we gained those numbers by going to lightweight parts.
Light ones, yeah.
Yeah, and it looks to me like that's exactly the change within a spec at every point in the curve, except for right here. Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Where do you find that?
Amazing. All right, let's have a look at 600 light versus 600 heavy. Wow.
That's even more.
Even bigger change when you're accelerating the engine faster. It hates it even more to have to carry all that dead weight. Wow. So I did the math on this also. The change is far greater. So at 300 RPM per second, the loss with the heavier parts was 12.7 pound-feet. It's 17 with the faster acceleration rate. And the horsepower changes from 15.8 to 23.
Wow.
So the faster you accelerate the engine, the worse it gets when you've got heavy components in the rotating and reciprocating assembly.
I mean, there's sections in here that are almost 30 horsepower.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? Yeah, like I say, we've done this before, but I've never seen gains like that. I've never worked that hard to get the weight off.
What's really interesting to me is not only that we showed the difference in power, but that we showed the faster you accelerate the engine, the worse it gets.
Yes, yes.
That's really my key takeaway at this point.
In the car, it's going to vary a lot more than that because you're going to be accelerating sometimes a lot faster than 600 RPM per second.
Yeah, I think for sure. And the other thing that's interesting is when we saw you playing with the engine before it was running, you're doing the wah-bah, wah-bah. Yeah. It also comes down much faster.
You ought to see what happens when I hit the off switch.
It just ding off.
Half a rotation, it's poof.
Yeah, it's just
done.
Dead.
It starts easier, I swear.
Yeah. No, it did.
Yeah.
When you started, I was thinking through that, and it's because when it first starts and it's only got a couple cylinders hitting, it no longer has to overcome all of that stuff to get running. It just bam!
At first, I thought this can't be. But then I shut it off, and it was literally, I could barely touch the start button. Boom, boom, and it was running.
Totally.
So all of it.
It's wild.
You know, something else I was thinking was in the car, it would make more difference in first gear than it would in high gear.
Right, because of
faster
acceleration rate. But let's get into the real world downsides of it. First of all, we took 44 pounds off the flywheel alone. In the real world with a small block Chevy, steel flywheel is going to be about 30, 32, and aluminum's going to be about 15.
Okay.
So you're taking 15 pounds off.
Okay.
So, and then with the front damper, I don't know what the weight is on those, but you could go from a 6.5 to an 8-inch, and that's a difference. So I guess what I'm saying is that the scale in the real world for an engine like this is going to be smaller.
Sure. I mean, we were demonstrating what happens, but by the time you're done with a good piston and a lighter connecting rod and buying the 60-pound big block crank or the 43-pound small block crank, by the time you're done picking away, you've knocked 40 pounds out of it. You can take 30, 20 pounds out of the crankshaft in a lot of cases.
Right.
Which, don't forget, is also just weight off the car and weight off the nose of the car. So, yeah, I think you're going to have to go further to get this kind of gain on this engine in the real world than we actually did on the dyno. Because the other thing is, you don't even want to run this thing over and over because it's got no damping in in the front whatsoever.
I don't like the idea of having no dampener in the front. I'm perfectly fine with like a little 6-incher, as long as it has some sort of ability elastomer or something there to dampen it. But with nothing there, I've seen timing chains break because of no dampening. There's a reason sprint cars run gear drives.
Okay.
Because they have no dampening, and it will break timing chains. I've seen it happen with blower motors. So a lot of this stuff, you know, the jerking back and forth, crankshaft manufacturers will tell you to use the lightest balancer possible, typically is what they'll tell you, as long as it's a harmonic balancer. Crankshaft manufacturers don't like drive hubs like this.
No, of course not. No.
So, but it's just,
I get that.
like I say, it's just demonstration purposes.
I think it's also cause and effect. If you don't run a hub, the crankshaft is accelerating both directions more quickly than it would otherwise, which is also why it's breaking those timing sets.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
With more weight on it, it goes, oh, instead of, hada! And so it's changing direction much more slowly.
Again, that's what crankshafts hate, is they hate being at one speed and changing to another.
Right. Here's the other thing, though, and we were worried about this recently. We just put an aluminum flywheel on my 56 Chevy, and I was worried because if you have a dump truck, you don't want a light flywheel. You need the stored energy of a big, heavy flywheel. If you have a rock-crawling Jeep and you want to chug along at 300 RPM crawling rocks, you don't want a light flywheel. You want the heaviest one that you can get.
Yeah.
But for the drag car that was lightweight with a 411 in the back and a stick, I went ahead and got the 15-pound flywheel, and I think it's helping me for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool. And it does a little bit of that wah-bah, kind of like this does.
You know, I grew up when we were using 50-pound flywheels in 288 cubic inch small blocks.
How did the horse pull that?
Well,
It took him a second.
we had 350 or 400 of them with the tunnel ram, so. But you know, it's a 3,800-pound 56 Chevy or, you know, something, and with 288 cubic inches, it was not going to leave with an aluminum flywheel. So that stored energy is accurate when you talk about that.
Yeah, I guess I make that point really specifically so that you don't realize, hey, let me just get rid of my flywheel and go. You know what it makes me realize about automatic transmissions too, is that when you do drag race converters that get smaller and smaller, that's also an advantage. And when you have lockup converters and big, heavy billet units, like in a 4L80 that weigh a ton, that's also a downside.
You know, anything you're rotating takes power to do it. The smaller the circumference or the diameter distance from center, the less affected the engine is by that. So the flywheel that's 14 inches in diameter is going to be a huge deal. If it's something located, a drill mark that's located 1.5 inches off center of the crankshaft, isn't going to matter much.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the car, it doesn't end at the end of the crankshaft when you're going down the road or down the track, because you're also turning the gears in the transmission, the main shaft, the counter shaft, all of that stuff. So,
Yep. I bet this makes a bigger difference on a big block with a big Hankin stroke than it does on a little small block, too.
It absolutely does.
And it makes more difference with higher RPM also.
Yep, all those things.
Like,
ding. Got us thinking.
Man, this is really cool. So, once again, more answers, more questions, more data, all the stuff that you get every time on
Engine Masters.
Do we have the hydraulic history?
Hydraulic,
Did you hear him when he said that?
Yeah.
He looked at you like you'd insulted him by saying hydraulic. Hydraulic? Not on my 372, you won't.
Yeah.
Did you see me?
Can you just do it one more time for close-up?
This time on Engine Masters, what is the best header for boost? Spoiler alert, it's not this one. This time on Engine Masters, it's a twofer, because we're gonna find out what the best header size is naturally aspirated on our 351 Ford, and then again when we're cramming a whole lot more air through it with boost. See, the thing that I want to figure out is if you're running naturally aspirated, does it maybe make best power with one size header? And then when it's blown and making a whole bunch more power, it requires a different header? And the way we're going to figure that out is with a standard small block Ford making 430 horsepower NA and 630 horsepower blown. So let's look at the specific motor that we are going to punish with boost and run a lot of headers across in this test. This engine in the bottom end is a bone stock 351 Ford. Cast crank, junk connecting rods, cast pistons, stock block, nothing special about it. We've got a comp cams hydraulic roller cam in it. It's 230 and 236 at 50. Up top, the key is the AFR 165cc inlet runner aluminum cylinder heads. Just FYI, we've tested these on this engine versus the larger 195s, and the 165s are just as good. It's amazing. We actually dig it. So those are the cheaper heads. Go ahead and buy them. Now up top, we've got the Edelbrock Victor Jr. single plane intake manifold on both combinations. We found out in prior testing that that Victor Jr. on this engine actually makes more power everywhere than the dual plane Performer RPM that we would normally suggest. So that's why we got that on there. Now up top, naturally aspirated, we're going to be running a Holley 750 XP carburetor, and supercharged, it's going to have the Demon blow-through unit. Clearly, we will not have the blower on it for our naturally aspirated testing, and when we do go to supercharged power, it is going to have a ProCharger F1A 94 centrifugal blower, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So there's the combination NA and blown. What are we going to do with the headers? First up, Speedmaster 1 5/8 inch tubes. This is about the low end of a tube you're going to want to put on any V8. They make 1.5 for some applications, but honestly, you'd be a chump to use them. So 1 5/8. Next up, we have got our hooker headers, 1 3/4 inch tubes for the small block Ford. And you can see we've got a header extension bolted to this one. We will have that set up for every single one of the headers that we're going to test because we know that the collector extension makes bottom end power. So this is a 1 3/4 inch tube. Now the next header that we've got is bolted to the engine right now, and they're from Dyno, and they are a stepped header from 1 3/4 inch for the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches of the tube, and then it steps up to 1 7/8 inch. Now you may ask, why aren't you just running a full 1 7/8 inch header? The deal on the small block Ford exhaust bolt pattern is that the 2 bolts next to each port are really close together, and you typically cannot bolt on a header that's bigger than 1 3/4 without having what's called a spread pattern. There's 2 different spread patterns that they make for the small block Ford to put bigger and bigger headers on them. Unfortunately, AFR does not drill the 165 heads for that spread pattern, and that's why we had to use the stepped header that goes from 1 3/4 to 1 7/8. So there's the whole shebang. The first thing that we're going to do is put the 351 on the dyno. We're going to bolt it up with the Speedmaster 1 5/8 inch headers and move on from there. Just wait for the boost because it's really cool. Okay, guys, headers versus boost. How do you like the test?
I like it good.
Yeah? What's going to happen?
I don't even know where to go with that.
I can anticipate it, Freiberger.
You can?
Well, yeah, it's self-explanatory because with boost, you're going to be making more combustion and what else? More exhaust. So in my theory, more exhaust is going to demand more header.
Yep, that's my theory too. So I am coming into this with a preconceived notion that the biggest header is going to be the best with boost. What I'm hoping is that the biggest header actually loses a little torque NA.
Tilts the curve.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, basically what we're doing with the blower is increasing the size of the engine.
Yeah.
So bigger engines generally want bigger headers.
We're going to kick it off with the smallest headers, which is the Speedmaster 1 5/8 units, which I should clarify to the audience, watch when this thing is running when Steve backs off of it because it shoots fire out the back. It has a like really flimsy flange up against the head, and it's got a leak. And when you decelerate, it sucks oxygen, and the unburned gases in the pipe then go poof. So you'll see that happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
We tried fixing that, and there just wasn't any way.
There's no fixing it, yeah. Yep. Okay, well, we'll get rid of these headers quick if you would just go fire it up and give us a baseline. Our baseline numbers with those small headers are 415.1 pound-feet of torque at 4,900 RPM and 423.5 horsepowers at 5,800 RPM. Actually, a little bit better than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, myself as well, it doesn't seem like it really lost that much from when we've tested it and run it before. So I think it looks pretty normal.
I guess that's all there is. I think we can go change up to the 1 3/4 and hopefully eliminate our exhaust leak and explosions while we're at it.
I hope.
Okay, ready? Here we come. 1 3/4 header changeover. Well, there's the 1 3/4 power curve right there. We're looking at 415.3 pound-feet of torque at 4,800, basically no change. And up top, 432.1 horsepower, which is an improvement, and it carried it to 6,000 RPM. It used to make peak power at 5,800 RPM. But as per usual, the whole story is not in the peak numbers, so let's look at the overlay. Interesting. Black lines 1 3/4, the larger headers. Red lines 1 5/8, the smaller headers. Look how the bigger ones made more torque.
Yeah.
Once again, sort of in this case, dashing the whole small headers make more torque.
Right. That's always unpredictable, but that's a big gain right there.
I think it's a how high is up thing. What's the engine that you're dealing with? If the engine was a whole lot more tame, if it was a 300 horsepower unit, maybe it would make less torque with the bigger header.
This is just a more appropriate header for this size and horsepower engine.
Right. We cannot say categorically that 1 3/4 always makes more torque than 1 5/8.
No.
It depends on the application. In this case, clearly the 1 5/8 was choking the engine out. What's interesting is that it's actually the same in peak torque and right in this area up there. But obviously up at the top end, you would clearly choose the 1 3/4. So we're vindicated.
Yeah, I like the 1 3/4 a lot better. That's a nicer curve for sure.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, though, is it looked to me like it was richer throughout the pull. Explain that to me, because we'd expect it to be leaner.
Actually, I wouldn't expect it to be either rich or lean. I would just expect it to be very, very close.
I guess I was thinking exhaust restriction tends to make it richer, but I guess we're not looking at restrictions as much as we are pulse width, lengths, and things like that.
Yeah, it got richer. I'm not sure I can explain it. I don't normally see that big of a swing, but
let's show the audience what we're talking about. So this curve is averaging roughly 12 to 1 down in here, and this one is 11 1/4 to 1. 11 1/4 1 is richer, meaning there's more fuel in the air than the red line, which is leaner, which...
It's a half a ratio difference.
So what's the bottom line on this change in air-fuel ratio? Do you feel like we need to go jet the thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's something there. It depends on how close you want to get. I mean, there's 3 or 4 horsepower there, I think, kind of potentially over the whole curve. So if we're looking for those kind of numbers, then I think we need to go address it.
So we're gonna go jet the carburetor. We're gonna take 3 numbers out of it and try and get the air-fuel ratio to match the 1 5/8 header a little bit better. Basically didn't care. No. Now we've got our power once we leaned the thing out a little bit. First, let's have a look and see how you did on your jetting.
Apparently I didn't whiff it that bad.
You did not whiff it. That's essentially the same. Yeah, from 12.0 to 12.1. Yeah, it's the same. There's some anomaly up here, but it doesn't matter. So, okay, let's look at the power difference now that it's leaned out to match. There's the comparison of lean to rich. The short version is it just doesn't care.
No.
The black line is with it a little bit leaner. It actually gave up just a tiny, tiny bit down here, but it doesn't care. Let's take the leaner curve and compare that with the 1 5/8 header so that we can be more. Okay, there we go. Black lines of the 1 3/4 larger header. Red lines of the 1 5/8 smaller header, and it's kind of doing the exact same thing that it did before the tune-up. No surprise whatsoever. So there's your answer from small to big. Now we're gonna move even bigger. We're gonna go to a header that has 1 3/4 tube right out of the port because that's all we can bolt to the head, and then it steps up to a 1 7/8 for the rest of the run. Now we're looking at the results with the largest headers, the ones that have mostly 1 7/8 inch pipe. We made 414 pound-feet of torque at 4,700, which sounds very familiar, basically hasn't changed the whole time. 436.9 horsepower, the biggest number that we've seen, at the highest RPM that we've seen, 6,100. But I have a feeling that if we overlay that with the 1 3/4 inch header, it's gonna give us a completely different story. And that is a different story. The red line here is the smaller 1 3/4 inch header, and the black line is the 1 7/8. This is probably the biggest part of the story.
Yeah, for me it certainly is. That's kind of what I saw when I rolled into the throttles. I went, man, it's just not there.
Yeah,
right.
I looked at Steve and went,
yeah.
Yeah, but I also expected it to carry on. I wasn't sure that it was gonna make more power up at the top, and it did.
I wasn't 100% sure, but it certainly had a chance, being as though the header's larger. And it's also, as we just went and found out, it's shorter.
Right. Yeah, the shorter tube length, you think, is what's causing this right here?
That's my guess, is the length, you know, being 4 inches shorter. I think that affected it more drastically than the change in diameter.
Right in there, and it depends on where your operating range is going to be. I mean, that's all occurring at 3,500 or below, or 3,600.
This isn't a drag race engine. You know, if you were using this as a drag race engine, you're weak. So I would say in the real world, I would choose the smaller header if I was throwing this in my Mustang or whatever.
Well, certainly normally aspirated.
Aspirated,
I'd be
yeah.
choosing the 1 3/4, because how often are you here and how often are you down there?
I guess what I'm looking at next is we're going to install the supercharger, and I want to see if the trend with the header is the same with the supercharger, or if we see a bigger and bigger gain. Like, for example, the 1 3/4 header, let's say the blower adds 150 horsepower. With the larger header, will it add 165?
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So next step, we're gonna go install our Pro Charger and return down to the bottom with the 1 5/8 inch header and progress back through all of the headers with boost. Boost. And the precious. I love me a Pro Charger centrifugal supercharger. This model is an F1A94, which is way more than we need for this engine. This is the very supercharger we used to make 750 horsepower on a stock bottom end 350 Chevy on another episode of Engine Masters. And I've got the same model on my 347-inch land speed engine that makes nearly 1,100 horsepower. So that tells you about the capability of this thing. And actually, it moves so much air that we had to take steps to reduce the boost on this one. When Brule first hooked it up, even with a huge crank pulley and a 4.5-inch blower pulley, this thing was making like 13 pounds, and the engine was on its way towards making 800 horsepower. Now, we wanted our 351 to survive, and so we had to tame it down. So they did two things to cut the boost down to 9 PSI. One, they restricted the inlet by adding this big tube and a pretty small air filter. By letting less air go into the supercharger, it has less air to work with and it makes less boost. Now, here's the other thing that's really wild. This is a hole in our discharge tube right there, and it is as big around as my finger. That is like a 3/4-inch hole right there. And drilling that only dropped 1 PSI of boost, which will blow your mind. So we're gonna go see this thing make, I don't know, 600 plus horsepower right now, and then we're gonna step back through all our different headers to find out which one is best for boost. Wow, it's way louder.
I know. It sounds wicked.
It really does.
That was 10 pounds or so boost.
Yeah.
Wow.
That thing shrieks.
No, totally.
That was cool. We just made 553.7 pound-feet of torque, and it pushed the RPM way up to 5,400 RPM. We were looking at 4,900 RPM with this header before. And the horsepower, 620.1, also higher in the RPM range at 6,300 RPM.
Do you think that the increase in the points of peak torque and peak power are because of the header or because of the rising boost curve?
Oh, it's the boost curve, for sure.
Yeah, there's no
right.
question.
Yeah, it's moving more air, for sure.
Yeah, it's getting more boost as the RPM rises, so that's going to pull
this type of supercharger just continues to move
That's
up.
going to pull the torque curve up as you're revving, so.
Let's find out what the boost curve looks like and what our peak was. Wow, nice steady climb. This is what you see with a centrifugal supercharger. They start off low. As RPM increase, so does the boost. So we started off down here at basically 2 point something and ended up at a peak of 9.6 PSI of boost, so not quite 10. Now let's have a look just versus NA, just because we can. Wow. Do I have to tell you which color lines are NA and which ones are blown? I don't think so. Down there's NA, up there's blown. But yeah, once again, this is the rising boost curve situation. See how the difference is less down at the bottom and far greater at the top? It's because that boost is just rising and shoving the thing higher and higher and higher in power.
Do you also notice that the curves are the same basic shape, but they're just exaggerated with boost?
And tilted up like this. They're not railroad tracks.
No.
It's not a perfect divide. It's more of a tilt up because of the boost.
It diverges because of the boost increasing.
But what Steve's saying is that the actual shape of it is the same.
Yeah.
Like if you overlaid them, they would follow that same arc.
Especially if you're looking at the torque curve where they're both on the downward trajectory on the roll in, and then at about the same point, they start to
climb.
level off.
Yep. And then they start to fall off really at the same rate.
Yeah. So
That's kind of the thing we keep on seeing is that whatever the engine does NA is the same thing with boost, just more.
Well, that remains to be seen with the bigger header. So
Which is the whole point of the episode.
I want to hop in there and swap to the bigger header right now.
Go ahead. I didn't know he volunteered to change the headers. Let's kick back. Now we're going to run the 1 3/4 inch header with the supercharger. Here are our results with the 1 3/4 inch header and the blower, and I've already done some maths here and it's blowing my mind. First of all, the peak power numbers are 553.8 pound-feet of torque at 5,400 RPM, which I will notice is 1/10 of a pound-foot better than the 1 5/8 inch headers, and the horsepower now is 623.8 at 6,500 RPM, which is 3.7 horsepower different. Now the math that I did is also the average power from 3,000 to 6,500 RPM, and without even reading you the data, I will tell you it is the same within like less than one number. The same. But let's look at the curve. Is it also the same? Whoa! Mind blower. The red lines are the 1 5/8 inch headers, and the 1 3/4 are in black. And the only place that made a difference is way up at the top, where we think we had some sort of dyno anomaly anyway, or something going on where the 1 3/4 made a tiny bit more power, or maybe it's stacking up right there.
We saw the same trend NA with a little dip here with the small header.
Oh, did we?
Versus the big 1 7/8. It smoothed it out quite in that last couple hundred RPMs.
And this right here, I'm not calling that anything whatsoever. They are the same. The same. Okay, when we made the change from 1 5/8 to 1 3/4 when we were naturally aspirated, I looked at peak horsepower and we picked up 1.9%. I looked at the average throughout the curve from 3,000 to 6,500 RPM and we picked up 1.15% on average for torque and 1.56 on average for horsepower. So we saw a gain NA. We did not see anything even calculatable.
And curiously, with the header change NA, we saw a divergence down low, which we're not showing here at all when we're testing the same two headers under boost, right?
Can you overlay the naturally aspirated 1 5/8 versus 1 3/4 on this same chart?
Sure.
Okay, so that's that 1% or 1.1% change that I was talking about, is that it's different down here than it is out here, but it just tilts the curve and they change.
It really does, and it's lower everywhere. Green and green.
Well, they overlay here.
Yeah.
So under boost, it seems like the engine's less sensitive to header diameter so far. If you
Which blows my mind. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, but what's the scavenging effect of the blower? It's creating positive cylinder pressure. It's not just the depression as the pistons going in and all the tuning of the waves and stuff. You actually have you've got pressure mechanically pushing into the cylinder.
It's something that I really wouldn't have thought of before, but, you know, it kind of follows a trend we've seen numerous times with testing other components. Everything seems like it matters less under pressure.
I would say everything that we've seen so far is that if whatever happens NA is what happens under boost, except this, because that tilt doesn't exist in the curve. And we've all read and said and heard forever that you need a bigger exhaust tube with boost.
Well, maybe you do. We could always change to even bigger pipes to see if that tends to reinforce this.
But this alone is already
pretty interesting.
Not what I expected whatsoever. This is killing my preconceived notion.
All day long I've been saying, well, it's like a bigger engine. But there's more to it than it just being a bigger engine, because it's not normally aspirated anymore, and all of those dynamics change.
Well, you ready to go put on the 1 7/8 and have mind blown again?
Is it my turn?
We'll help. This will be our final test. This is the headers that are stepped from 1 3/4 to 1 7/8. And the wild card is they're a little bit shorter too. So we're gonna find out if Boost cares.
It's like that.
Ding, 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 ding. 637.2 horsepower, 566.4 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, the peak torque and the peak horsepower is way up. And look at this.
Well, we better look at the boost.
I know,
make sure
we gotta
it's
look at everything. Yeah, let's look at the boost. See if for some reason that climbed. Yeah, so basically the boost didn't change regardless of the header style, which is actually good because it means there's less variables in the testing.
Yeah, if we saw an extra couple of PSI there, then
we'd start hunting for Y and everything. Okay, what should we compare it to first? I guess we should throw up the boosted 1 3/4 inch header. This comparison shows the 1 7/8 inch headers in black and the 1 3/4 in red. This is the curious part.
It's a whole lot better now than it was NA.
Right. Doesn't matter as much. So we can see that we made more power essentially everywhere with the larger header. I mean, that's definitely a choice you'd make, run the larger header. So why did it make a difference here and it didn't make a difference from 1 5/8 to 1 3/4?
Which you would think would make more difference, starting from way smaller and then giving it some room. And then usually when you give it a little more room by the same proportion, you know, you get diminishing returns. But right here, it seems like...
Yeah, it's the same diameter change, although the volume change is much more radical.
The percentage of the orifice is
much bigger.
More.
Yeah, I mean, in diameter it's the same, but the volume is radically different, which I guess is what we're seeing here. I'm just surprised that the 1 5/8 and the 1 3/4 were so similar, and this one's making that much of a jump. So that's telling me that both the other headers were a restriction. Let's look at the NA comparison of these same two headers, 1 3/4 versus 1 7/8.
See how it just killed the bottom end out of it?
Yeah, right here is where you're looking about how the larger header, when it was naturally aspirated, killed bottom end, and we did not really see that trend under boost. It is a little change here and there, but not a distinct loss like you've seen here and here.
So there is a less sensitivity as far as that low-end torque's concerned with our changes in headers compared to NA.
Exactly, and naturally aspirated, the larger header pulled away way up here at, what, 5,400 RPM, whereas with boost, it pulled away at 3,500, 600, 700 RPM, basically. So my overall conclusion to the episode is, I don't understand why the 1 5/8 and the 1 3/4 ran identical, and I'm vindicated in my presumption that the largest header was going to make more power once we were under boost. I think the thing that's frustrating all of us is that we're not seeing a pattern. You know, normally we see a regular progression that's sort of logical. In this case, we're not. So the real argument here is, why did the two smaller headers run exactly the same? And in this case, with the 1 7/8 versus the 1 3/4, is the difference because of the larger tube diameter? Or is it because they're a shorter primary length?
It's a slight difference in the primary length. I mean, it's 3 inches, which will certainly make a difference, but not a huge one. I think it finally got to a point where there was enough header diameter that it was able to make a little more power. I don't think the supercharged engines are as sensitive to header configuration, you know, like primary links and collectors and all of that stuff below peak torque, like an NA engine is.
Yeah, we saw that definitively as far as what happened at the bottom of the curve. The 1 5/8 and 1 3/4 were almost the same, and then the 1 7/8 did show an increase. You know, it was distinct. So that is the toughie.
Yeah, so I mean, the conclusions that we can make, I believe, only really apply to this engine and the header configurations that we tried. If you're duplicating this 351, I would definitely run a 1 3/4 inch header, naturally aspirated, in my opinion. Although the 1 7/8 did make a little bit more top end power. I like the average better on the 1 3/4. And I would run this stepped 1 3/4 to 1 7/8 inch header if I was supercharged.
Absolutely.
And I think that I would carry that trend into other engines just sort of intuitively, but I don't see a pattern where I can say, this tends to be what's going to happen for an engine of this style.
Well, it's hard to draw one conclusion from it because each engine configuration is going to be slightly different, and the application that it's used in might be slightly different. So even in an NA application, you're going to pick a different header for different things. And I think the same thing's going to happen here with the supercharger.
The thing is, engines, I think they vary, and you don't always see a positive conclusion, but really, knowledge is cumulative, and we just didn't see a pattern this time.
But we learned something.
But did we?
I think
Maybe you did.
Engine
Hopefully you did. Because that's our goal, is trying to teach you something every time on Engine Masters.
I want to hop in there and swap to the bigger header right now.
Go ahead. I didn't know he volunteered to change the headers. Let's kick back. You want a cola or anything? Can I get you beer?
Beer's good.
Beer's good? All right, I'll be right back. You still have the MGD in the refrigerator?
You know, I can't really do that and drive my car home, so.
So not anymore? Oh, come on. I need you to go buy beer.
I'll have a cold brew.
This time on Engine Masters, we are living the tunnel ram life. We're living the cross ram life. Which one makes more power? You're about to find out. This is going to be the battle of the vintage dual quad intake manifolds. You know that I love the tunnel ram. I want to love the cross ram. We're going to find out which one is easier to tune and makes better power. Before we get into the details here, let me tell you exactly how we're going to do that. We're going to run all of this stuff on that 383 small block Chevy that you've seen on Engine Masters a zillion times. In this case, it's basically just a test motor to show you what these things are gonna do. And we're gonna baseline this thing with another vintage style intake manifold, the Edelbrock Victor Jr. You can still buy those brand new all day long, but they were designed quite a while ago, and they've got small ports for the early cylinder heads, as these do as well. So it's kind of a fair comparison of an older style 4-barrel versus the older style dual quads. So that's going to be our baseline. Next up, we're going to run the tunnel ram. This is my personal favorite. I just love the tunnel ram. Let's talk about why it even exists. Cast your mind back to 1959. There was a group of Chrysler engineers called the Ram Chargers that built a car called the High and Mighty. And these guys, during their daytime job, had been experimenting with really long intake manifold runners. You've seen those Chryslers that are big old cross rams like this, like the Plymouth Sonoramic. It's got one carburetor on the other side of the valve cover over here and another one over there, big long runners. What they knew is that long intake runners make torque. Shorter intake runners make high RPM power. So knowing what these guys knew, they made the very first tunnel ram intake manifold on that high and mighty car. Basically, an intake with a bunch of radiator hoses running up to a log with a couple of carburetors. Now, it worked. And so the aftermarket soon came up with the tunnel ram that people associate with late 60s and all through the 70s and early 80s kind of street machines. But these are actually functional as well. Basically, these are running much longer intake runners than you could on, say, the Victor Jr. And so this thing, while most people think of it as being a super high RPM unit, is actually really good for beefy mid-range torque. And as we proved in the very first episode of Engine Masters, they also can make great high RPM power depending on the combination. The exact manifold that we're using here is a Wyand high ram. Unfortunately, they only recently discontinued this for the small block Chevy. Wyand still sells them for big block Chevy and Mopar and a few other things, but not the small block Chevy. What you still can buy brand new is the Edelbrock TR1Y, which, if I'm being honest, is actually a better intake than this, but I had it, so it's what we're gonna use, and I love it. But to use this intake, you gotta cut a hole in your hood 9 times out of 10. So the question is, can you make the same performance with a cross ram that will fit under the hood? We're asking that question with this box ram style intake manifold, which is an Edelbrock STR10, made way back in the day, long since discontinued, although you can buy a similar Offenhauser these days. And it's a direct knockoff of the GM factory intake manifold that they offered as an in-the-trunk option for a 1969 Camaro Z28. Now, why would the manufacturer build something like this? Once again, long intake runner length for mid-range power. All they did with these cross rams is take the tunnel ram concept of 4 runners like this standing up, and to make hood clearance, they laid them down and crossed them over. You can clearly see this in the inside of this box ram right here. This is the mouth of the port for the cylinder that's over here on the other side of the engine. So you've got this half going that way, this half going that way, and 2 carburetors right on top, like so. The question is, how is this thing gonna run and drive? I've run these before and I found out that they've got cylinder-to-cylinder distribution problems on the corners, and I know that they've got some drivability issues on making the carburetors work, but will they make power? Will they run as good as the tunnel ram? That is the question that I'm here to answer, because I gotta tell you the truth, I really want to put the cross ram on my 56 Chevy because I don't want to cut a hole in my hood for the tunnel ram, which I know makes me a little bit weak. But we're gonna find out exactly how weak as we fire up the 383 with the Victor Jr. single 4-barrel and then move on to the awesome tunnel ram and finally the big question mark of the Edelbrock box ram. This is gonna be a really fun one to watch and a really horrible one for Brule.
Poor Brule.
Not horrible for me. I'm used to jetting everything sideways.
Well, but here's what I'm looking forward to when we get to the cross ram, is you not being able to go, oh yeah, throw 2 in it, it'll be fine. No, not gonna happen. That's what the whole episode's gonna be about, I think, is tuning the cross ram. But first, single 4-barrel and then tunnel ram before we get to the cross ram. We got the Vic Jr. on this thing. Brule's already got this combo tuned up, so we're gonna fire it up and give you the baseline with our single 4-barrel and Victor Jr. intake manifold. We're making 455.7 pound-feet of torque at 4,300 RPM and up at 5,800, 454.5 horsepower.
I just want to move on to the more interesting specimens here.
I'm not going to let you.
No!
Because the first thing I want to do is look at the cylinder-to-cylinder distribution on this thing. Yeah, because we're going to be looking at that on the other intake manifold, so we got to see what's going on here. We've got those oxygen sensors in every header tube, and so we're going to look here and see what our spread is. And wow, surprisingly close for a manifold like this, I'm going to say. 13.1, 13.1, 13.13, 13.6, 13.6, and now's where it goes off the plot, 12.8, 12.1.
Rear 2 cylinders, yeah.
Yeah, the rear 2 cylinders are way more rich than the others. Can you plot that? Okay, so we're looking at a range here from at the worst about 11.3, and worst lean is up at 14.4.
We should look down here. Downstream, They always tighten up with some engine speed.
Makes sense. The question is, which cylinder is this guy?
It has number 8.
Number 8?
Yeah, we could possibly
You want to pull
jet
jets
that.
out of one corner?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to do that because we're going to be doing it on the tunnel ram and the cross ram. Here's what we're attempting to do here. You can see on the intake manifold that there are 2 runners that are feeding cylinders. This one here is cylinder number 8. This one is number 6. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is number 8 is way too rich, meaning it's getting way too much fuel. Number 6 is probably a happy player, so this might go upside down for us. But if you look at this metering block that goes in the back of the carburetor, it's got 2 jets in it. Now, typically, when we make a jetting change, we'll put the same size jet in both of these holes. Right now, we're gonna take just this one out and change it to try and lean out cylinder number 8 because this is the jet and therefore the venturi in the carburetor that is closest to cylinder number 8. Thing I mentioned though is that this venturi is feeding 6 and 8, so we could go backwards with this, but we're gonna give it a shot because when we get to the other manifolds, we're gonna be having to do a lot of this stagger jetting. Before we even look at power or anything, we're gonna pull up the air-fuel curves for just cylinders 6 and 8. See if we can tell if it changed anything before and after. 6 still way lean, spikes to 14, but we're more concerned over here with the 13.75, and 8 is still way rich at 12.0. But Steve's gonna pull up the comparison, so tell me what you're seeing.
It didn't change much of anything.
Does it need a wild swing of way more jet than that?
You can't start taking a whole bunch more jet out or the booster just becomes kind of in-op and we're already in the 14s there. It's going to affect this cylinder as well as this one. I mean, that's why guys struggle with air-fuel ratio distribution and lengthening walls and putting little dams and turtles and all those things. Yeah, to try and get the fuel to go where they want it to go. And this is a perfect example.
So I guess your professional opinion, which we will trust, is that you just can't get there from here.
No, and I don't know how much that's going to affect power anyway. I would much rather have a rich cylinder than a lean cylinder, given a choice, because you're going to make more power with a cylinder that's rich than you will with one that's lean.
And you're safer with a cylinder that's rich than one that's lean.
Yep.
Can we see if it had any effect on power? I'm guessing not more than a wiggle from dyno deviance, but...
We leaned out that corner and we saw 457.3 pound-feet at 4,700, 457.7 at 6,000, which is 200 RPM higher than we had before.
Are you giving up on the Victor Jr. now?
No, actually what I'm kind of curious about is if it had more of an effect on some other cylinder that we weren't targeting.
Oh, like it's doing this in there and it's going down number 1 instead?
Yeah, it's like a roulette wheel. Like,
come on, big money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a roulette wheel of distribution.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we put 4 jets on number 8, but maybe the winner was number 3. Who knows?
I can't argue. So we're going to have a look at every cylinder here and see if we can see a change. So this mess right here is air-fuel ratio curves for every cylinder in the engine, and that is before and that is after. So tell me, Steve Dulcich, what did it change?
Oh, wow, it's hard to see. It just looks like a spider web to me. You'd almost have to bring them up individually, or...
Yeah, there's too much there, but there's a couple that dropped down, which shouldn't have. They actually should have gotten supposedly leaner if there was less fuel, but that's run-to-run variation. On other cylinders, it's going to have some variation of, I mean, and we're talking like less than a tenth.
Tenth of a ratio,
Yeah.
You don't see any there that...
are way big outliers?
Now, this is a pretty good group.
What does this one match with in black?
Number 3.
And where's the before number 3?
Right there.
Okay.
It's number 3 and 3.
So it had a bigger change on number 3 than it had on number 8.
Well, the roulette wheel.
Well, an intake manifold plenum is not like a constant state. It's pulling from various pulses in an uneven sequence all across there, and it's creating all kinds of confusion.
But I thought you were the pit boss.
Well, I don't know.
You could just stroll right in there and solve that.
I'll take that.
I want to see you with a magnet under the table.
Oh, yeah, that's the way I do
what
it.
you need. Okay, so I guess we're officially done with the Victor Jr. because I want to move on to Tunnel Ram. The downside of the Tunnel Ram, perhaps the only one, is it's heavy.
I'm really impressed.
At what?
At how you lifted that up there, just like you were 25.
While we were making that changeover, Steve actually did a bunch of research on that Victor Jr. He went and looked cylinder by cylinder at every single one.
I was looking for the cylinder that was most affected by that change in the back.
On the number
right corner.
6 and 8 corner, yeah. And you think it was number 3?
It seemed like it by the information we recorded, yeah.
It's 180 degrees away.
Roulette wheel, man.
Yeah.
Could have been. All right, next up, though, we had to make a change here. We ended up breaking the dyno, actually. It wasn't bad, though. We didn't break the absorber, like, you know, the spud shaft or anything like that. We ended up breaking part of the water pump. So we actually had to shift the engine over to West Tech's different dyno next door. It's the same thing. It's a 902, right?
It's identical.
So we feel we're still going to be able to compare results. So fire up the Tunnel Ram. The next thing we're going to look at here is the air-fuel ratio in each individual cylinder. And because we've got a tunnel ram with one barrel of the carburetor right over the mouth of one opening, we're going to be able to look at it and find out if we can change the jetting in the carburetor to affect the air-fuel ratio in that particular cylinder or the ones nearby, the ones on the roulette wheel that are sort of sharing with that one.
I don't think the roulette wheel is as big on this.
Well, let's look and show people the outliers. There you go. That's the lean guy right there. Number 6 is not having a great day. The rest of these are actually pretty good. I guess number 2 is a little bit of an outlier as well.
I mean, it doesn't bother me that much because it's there kind of momentarily as we're accelerating through.
Yeah, it goes down.
And then we're back into the mid-12 stuff here.
So really, we don't care about this at all because I hadn't actually factored in that it comes all the way down into where it wants to be.
And this is 14.2.
But this 11-to-1 guy right here is hating life because it's way too rich. So we want to go to cylinder number 3 and see if we can lean that one out.
Actually, we're going to do a group.
Okay.
We're going to pick them out, and I'll make some jet decisions on each cylinder, whether to leave it alone or whether to jet it. +4, -2, whatever, and just go 1 through 8. And
got it.
It'll say okay. Or...
Okay.
Through the magic of Brulé, it will be instantly tuned.
Ooh, Brulé is making the list.
There's no waffling around. You don't see any hemming and hawing.
It's just
like that.
authoritative.
Yeah. That's the way Brulé does it.
I don't expect to hit it the first try.
Yeah.
But I should be able to hit it within 3 jet changes.
Man, look at that. So he just made a list of every cylinder, glanced at the data, and was like, I'm going to go +3, -1. I'm going to leave this one alone. We're going to find out if the wizard is on point.
Or full of it.
Yeah.
No, I have faith in you, Brulé.
Now we have to go open 4 carburetor bowls.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Give me a list.
69.
Okay, I'll go get
73. That's going to be a 67. I'm going to number 7, and that's going to be a 68. Look and see what jet you got, and then we'll go from there.
69. That's our first round of jetting changes. Let's find out how close Brulé got. Yeah, it looks to me like we got more jetting to do. Let's go see what Steve's up to. So, do we have to take them all off or just a few?
Well, probably all of them.
Stagger jetting number 2.
After the second cut, it gets better, right?
I hope so.
I think we will.
When he's making the pull, we're looking at this part of the screen right here, and you can see those lines going up and down, telling us what's going on. But let's look at the spread. Yeah, look at that, 15-1 right there on number 6 is no bueno. But we don't have any of those absurdly fat ones anymore, except for maybe number 1 at 12-1.
Yeah, especially towards the very last few hundred RPMs, but in the mid-range, it's actually not too far off.
Yeah. Well, Brule told us it was going to take 3 steps to get this right.
Yeah, we're only 2/3 of the way through it.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is only going to improve.
Okay, third and final cut, Freiberger.
Final? Think so?
Said so.
Don't touch any linkage.
He just did that. Don't open the carburetors. We dropped an air bleed into the carburetor. And by we, I mean Steve Brule. So Brule's got a screwdriver with a piece of Gorilla Tape on the end. He's trying to stick the bleed to it, just like a little tiny jet. Little bitty. And for his third act, the carburetor whisperer changed some air bleeds instead of fuel jets.
Yeah, and air bleeds will affect the air-fuel ratio, similar to a jet, but...
Yeah, it's just like more fine-tuning precision. It's tuning the air instead of the fuel, which to Brule is a nuance that just cannot be captured by mere mortals. The carb whisperer is done. You could go more, I know. But I think what we're looking at here is these red lines are where we started with the tunnel ram and its jetting, and the black lines is after all of the masterful fine tuning. And it's a carburetor. You're never going to get every cylinder absolutely perfect, but you can see the overall grouping is way tighter. Look in here, we got one outlier, but these are all tight, and the red lines are just way all over the place, and especially all the way up at peak power, you can see kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and we didn't see a lot of power gain, but what we did see was some cylinders that were pretty scary lean.
Yeah.
And now we've saved those.
It's safer.
Yeah. Well, and the thing I'll say is this particular engine is not really sensitive to the air-fuel ratio, obviously. But there's no question, hundreds of times I have taken drag race engines, boats, cars, and gone in, and particularly big motors, and individually tuned cylinders with as much as a 15-jet spread from cylinder to cylinder, and found 20
horsepower?
23 horsepower, yeah.
Wow.
And it was not uncommon.
Yeah. Well, how about this one? Did we gain anything?
Well, we onesies and twosies this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the black line's here after the tuning, and the red is before, and you can see we definitely picked up power here, a little bit here. I mean, it's not awesome, but by the time you add in the fact that the engine is safer without some cylinders that are actually running on the point of vaporizing aluminum, it's actually pretty good.
Well, and particularly if a guy decided to put a couple nitrous plates under the carburetors, that's when it was really going to get ugly. And now I think it's safe enough.
That's pretty cool. I'm actually happy with this for that change.
Actually, yeah. It's not worse anywhere. It's at least even or better.
Yeah. Our final power numbers after the tune-up on the tunnel ram, 474.8 pound-feet of torque, 465.3 horsepower. But that doesn't matter. I want to see how much better the tunnel ram is than the single 4-barrel, because that's what's important to my life. The tunnel ram must succeed.
Well, I don't think there's any question that you won this time.
Boom. Wow. Huge. Really huge. Once again, they converge right up there at the top where the runner length is probably affecting something, but that's a huge gain with that intake manifold.
You know, when I was driving it on the dyno, those things drive pretty good. They cruise at 12.5 to 1. They respond really well. They load at 2,900 RPM at wide open throttle. So there's no, I honestly do not see any downside to these.
With the exception of cold start, I dismiss people's belief you cannot drive a tunnel ram on the street.
Yeah, that's a complete fallacy, I think. So,
with the exception of cold start.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. The question is, does this amount of power overcome the weight difference? Because the tunnel ram is heavier than the manifold, and twice as many carburetors is heavier. If it had aluminum carburetors, it wouldn't be as bad.
Yeah.
Next up, the cross ram. Is it better than the tunnel ram? Is it worse? Is it a tuning disaster? Stay tuned. Pull the carbs. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna go grab those carburetors and put them on the cross ram, while these guys are removing the tunnel ram.
But one thing I can do with great precision is drop an intake manifold.
Okay. Bolt her down. We got the cross ram all worked out here. The biggest problem that we had is that port mismatch that I keep talking about. This one barely seals. I hope we don't have a massive vacuum leak there. We had to put a short valve cover on that side to clear the throttle linkage, and the distributor is a tight fit, but it's installed. Let's go see if it makes power. I don't know what you saw, but our mind was blown already.
It was pretty decent.
Can we look at the air-fuel distribution before we look at the power? Okay, how does that happen? That's better than the tunnel. Look at that pairing right there, that grouping.
It's all a little rich, but it's within a ratio, basically.
And that's with the jetting and the air bleeds all over the map in those carburetors.
Yeah, because we figured, well, we've got to work on them anyway, so let's just start. And, well, apparently it's identical to the tunnel ram as far as jet requirements.
Well, except for this guy, number 3. But
maybe that's got a really lean jet somewhere in a corner that doesn't really want it. See, because we just plop those carburetors right on there with jets all over the place.
Yeah, that one might have the number 63 in it, but like, how do you know which jet is reaching that cylinder? Because that's number 3. I was looking at that intake and I thought the corners were gonna be garbage. Number 3 is directly under a Venturi, directly under that one right there.
But we don't know what the jet is in that particular hole.
I'm gonna say what jet is in number 3 and put everything there. Because all this is rich, that's actually okay.
And so you're trying to
bring all these up.
Yeah, and that one
so
down.
So if that has a 67, maybe we put 67s
and everything. Oh, you're saying this is the happy cylinder and these guys are chubby.
Yeah.
So go ahead and put these on a diet and let that one, like,
stay
eat the
alone.
pizza.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to put it that way.
I don't even know where to go from here because the last time you and I did this on one of these, the corners were trash.
I'm doing the brulee face rub this time. Because I want to make them all the same.
Yeah.
And then start
At what size? Because they're all rich.
Yeah, that's
So you want to make them all the same size at 68?
Yeah, something like that.
I'm down with Dulcich on this one. I have the fog theory.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have the I don't know theory.
I'm just going to call it the fog of reason.
The fog of reason.
Yes. Clarity.
Okay, we're going to go with the Dulcich theory this time because we've been talking for half an hour and we're confused by how this thing is going to get stagger jetted. And it is stagger jetted and it's a disaster, so we're going to go put what number jet in every hole?
68.
I'm with brulee.
Okay, 68's in every hole. Ready?
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do now is take every bowl off and take every single jet and put a 68 in it, which is 5 steps leaner than these carburetors came with to begin with, and we'll find out what happens.
That was pretty good.
I'm 100% wrong about everything about this intake manifold, at least on this engine.
It's the fog of fuel.
It is the fog.
So basically, it's almost like the fog is in the plenum and then different cylinders are just getting a nibble.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, once it takes its turn, it goes.
Yeah, there's
then
no...
the next guy goes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your opinion, please.
Let's look at air fuel. I don't want to look at power yet because I'm already blown away by the air fuel. I want to look at power later. Ooh. Much tighter and no big outlying cylinder. The range here is 14 to 12.
This is just one at the end.
Well, I'm looking like right here.
Yeah, right here.
It's literally better than most of the modern single or dual plane single 4-barrels.
It's really surprising.
How is that? Can we look at this versus before when we had the jets all over the place?
Won't matter.
It doesn't care. There you go. Yeah, we leaned it out a little bit. The black lines are the most recent pull. The red lines are with the jumble jetting, and we did lean it out just a hair. Okay, I still don't want to look at power. I want you to finish jetting it and then look.
You say finish jetting it, but I still don't know exactly how to get to number 3. It's still lean.
Yeah.
So, what I think I might try to do, jet the front up, or I can air bleed it real quick. That would be a quick change to see if we can affect it.
The whole front of this one?
No,
because that'll affect 1 and 3. And 1.
Well, I don't think it's that defined.
No, because
there's 2 ports over here and 2 Venturis over here.
It's the fog.
So, yeah,
it's totally the fog.
Not that defined.
So here's my analogy on how this intake manifold works. You take the lid off, it's a big open box, right? It's just like Dulcich with the guacamole at lunch. You know how you bring the big styrofoam container of guacamole and he's just face first into the guac? It doesn't matter where he's pulling from, he's all over the guac.
I like the guac.
I know, that's what this manifold is doing. It is the Dulcich guac face intake manifold. So what are you gonna do about jetting the intake manifold?
You know.
You're gonna bleed that one?
Yeah, I mean, that's the quickest way to find out if we can do something over there.
So we're gonna try and make this better with air bleeds. He's gonna put a smaller air bleed in, which is less air, which means a richer mixture.
It'll richen it up.
Yeah, and because what we're targeting is trying to make number 3 a little bit richer. Other than that, it's like good. Once again, if we didn't have this data, we'd be super happy right now.
Yeah, let me go put some fuel in it. Number 1 and 3 cylinders actually enter right over in this area. So what we're doing is trying to add fuel to these 2 Venturis, and we've done that with a high-speed air bleed. We're just trying to, when you reduce the size of the high-speed air bleed, it restricts the air, increases the signal at the jet. So it'll richen the mixture over here. It'll be more gas versus air. And we're just trying to see if anything that we can do to the front of this carburetor, these are the 2 closest ports, to see if we can affect any sort of air-fuel ratio change. We've got 1 cylinder, number 1, that's actually rich. The other one, number 3, which is lean. It's going to be tough to make them balance, but we're just right now looking to see if we can have some effect.
What do you think of your results?
Are we looking at happy brulee or a sad brulee?
It's not even a happy or sad brulee.
It's just you can't get there from here brulee.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, there's nothing where you can go and say this is going to affect this directly.
As far as jetting or what's happening at the carburetor.
Basically what we're saying is that we've made huge swings in fueling on that one carburetor, and those cylinders are still lean. So while I've been incredibly impressed with this intake manifold, part of what I was saying about the distribution is true. It's got a couple holes where you can just never get fuel, and I think that's what I'm remembering from when you and I did this before.
Yeah, it's just tough.
Yeah. I thought it was all the corners. It's not. It's just the front corner with 1 and 3 in that neighborhood. So it's not going to get there.
Well, and by fattening it up, we helped some in the mid-range, it looked like, but it already wasn't horrible there. But that right at the end of the RPM curve, it just starts trending lean.
Well, here's something to consider, guys.
Huh.
Okay, would you agree that some fuel is going to puddle and stick to the floor?
Especially with those 2 barrels directly above the floor. I'm going to agree with that.
Okay. And then think of the firing order, 1-8-4-3-6-5-7-2. 1 and 3. 3 is going to be firing pretty soon after 1. Then it's a long lag time before you have the intake happening on number 1. So that puddle fuel has a lot longer to work its way to number 1.
Sort of dribble that direction.
Yeah.
That's possible.
That's my theory. I'm going with it.
I'm still going with the fog theory, but I'll give you the puddle theory.
Yeah,
fog
because
and puddle.
Back in the day, they would popsicle stick, build little dams in the floor, only in the floor, to try to like direct
fuel and air. Yeah.
So that might be part of it. The distribution may be more a matter of the manifold than the carburetors.
Well, yeah, I think it 100%
is.
Yeah, and, well, not 100%, but I believe in this case it is.
Yeah.
So are we content that we made the fuel as good as we're going to?
I think we've done what we can realistically. We could spend days.
Yeah.
But this is about as good as we can get with a normal tune.
So we can look at the power?
We can.
We're going to look at the power. Yeah. because I think it's also surprisingly good.
I can tell you positively that it's surprisingly good.
Before we look at power, I'm going to tell you the distribution is still way better than I expected. And the power is 474 pound-feet of torque, and up top, 457.8 horsepower. Maybe not as good as the tunnel ram, but I'm still impressed.
No, it's really good. I did notice after leaning it out that it was a little tougher to drive. It wasn't quite as good with more fuel, so I think it probably needs maybe a little bigger squirter, bigger power valve, something like that, and I think that'll help out a lot.
Yeah, you would have to tune that in a car, and I presume it's going to be a little bit of a battle.
It's not as drivable as the tunnel ram yet.
Yeah, but
that's
overall,
true.
Power-wise, to me, it exceeded expectations. I mean, it's looking like a pretty good curve compared to our earlier numbers.
So here's a stroke of self-serving genius that I came up with while we were talking about how we couldn't believe how good the distribution was. It had a couple of weird holes, but it was actually pretty good. And I kept on saying, when I did this before, those corners were junk. So here's the difference. Carb spacers. Before we had the carburetors right on the manifold, and this has got two tapered combos on it.
Yeah.
And so what if that raising that Venturi another inch off the plenum floor actually helped the fog of guacamole instead of having it like bounce or do who knows what.
And the radius of a tapered combo, too, is going to help it make a turn.
Maybe.
You know, that's possible, certainly.
So I think that's possibly the reason, not a guarantee, but it's a bench racing reason why it might have been different.
I agree.
We'll call it the Freiberger hypothesis for
Okay.
now.
It is a hypothesis, not a fact. So in conclusion, what do we actually know here? I think we know that the Victor Jr. is the wrong intake manifold for this engine. It only made power above 6,000 and it was a mess compared. It wants a performer RPM with a 1-inch spacer.
This RPM range.
That's the right single 4-barrel for this engine. Second of all, what do we know about the tunnel ram versus the cross ram?
The cross ram looks cooler.
It looks way cooler, but does it make more power? We need to look at that.
Well, we're about to find out.
Yep, so this is gonna be a comparison of the tunnel ram versus the cross ram. And now we know that the tunnel ram is a better unit. So the red lines are tunnel ram, the black lines are the cross ram. They are remarkably similar from 3,300 RPM all the way up to when the torque and horsepower cross over at 5,250, and above that, the tunnel ram takes over.
You can justify it with power, but not with good looks.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not like you're talking about gobs of power, because the difference between these two manifolds is nothing compared to the difference of either one of them compared to that single plane we tried earlier.
Right, exactly.
So,
the other thing I would say is straight out of the box carburetors, I don't know if you recall, but the tunnel ram did not do this. The tunnel ram was worse than the cross ram initially. Only once you stagger jetted it to death did it come up to this point, meaning your average guy who's driving around with it without 802 sensors in his headers is never gonna get there. And in that case, if you're not gonna tune the thing so expertly, the cross ram was actually better down here.
Yeah, it actually was. The thing that was really odd about all the stagger jetting that we did is the average air-fuel ratio was basically the same from 3,500 up.
Yeah.
Where it picked up all the power below 3,500 is where the air-fuel ratio changed.
So going back to what have we learned, Victor Jr.'s wrong. Tunnel ram is always right.
yeah.
And the cross ram is pretty good as long as you never want to make peak power. No, ultimately, I mean, you know I'm a tunnel ram fan, but the cross ram was way, way better than I expected.
The hood closes.
Yeah, the hood closes without a hole in it. So that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
I mean, it's some retro intake manifolds that normal guys don't use anymore, but maybe they should.
I think you're going to see more of those.
More cross rams out there? You know what the problem is? They're
aren't.
stupidly expensive. Stupid expensive.
No price on good looks.
Oh, there we go.
So what you're saying is?
You look
marvelous. When I look into my own cross ram, I look marvelous. Exactly, because it's all about good looks with this crew every single time on Engine Masters. Here we go with the tunnel ram. Now it really feels like I'm watching it on TV. This must be what the audience feels like.
I think we feel more of the excitement being here live. It's like a rock concert.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Yeah.
Right now, though, it's like standing in the parking lot while the opening act is just finishing up.
That's exactly, yeah.
Right? Here we go.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các bạn nhé. Các bạn mình đây xem hoài các bạn xem các bạn hãy like và comment giúp kênh của mình thật hay nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi kênh của mình. Thank you các bạn rất nhiều nha. Ok. Thế em vào sửa cho anh. Đổi khác được anh. Tại vì em không thấy đâu. Yeah. Anh chọn cái đẹp nhất. Anh thấy đẹp nhất. Cái chia sẻ thế nào? Yeah. Rồi xem cái sửa. Mua gì em? Em không mua em? Không, đi đâu rồi?
Đâu, thế anh chuyển cảnh trực tiếp à?
Gửi đâu? Em đang video trên này.
Hả? Qua đâu?
Hả?
Đi.
Giờ đi em vào.
Em không gửi mà có video không lên.
Tưởng anh đẻ rồi không? Đưa. Chả biết spam đi. Em thay cái khác rồi mà. Đâu ra? Em thay rồi. Em check lại em thay rồi. Vừa như vậy. Tay em chỉnh đấy. Chả thế em nói gì đâu. Gì anh chị? Đẹp.
Dạ vâng. Biết. Với cả chân cũng là chân chân thật chứ. Ai? Đây. Ngân khen gì? Đầu dưới xem. Ôi, không biết rồi. Nếu mà thứ tư có tập mới nhất mới ra thì mình cũng để tên tập không?
Lúc đấy để tên SE luôn.
Yeah.
Vâng. Lúc đấy để anh cứ làm đến lúc đấy.
Nên mình để vừa season mới.
Lúc mà nó tập mới là anh đặt.
Lần trước như thế thôi.
Đấy như lần trước. Nhưng mà tập sau thì lại phải chuyển lại.
Tập sau thì mình để tên tập. Tối thứ tư là tập mới.
Sao anh mà cười? Ngon cái mặt cười nữa. Không biết là con anh tôi không cần cười quá. Cười.
Tôi
Một tiếng. Kìa. Nha. Nước nôi gì không?
Quá nói em đừng say em ngủ. Anh ghét anh ghét anh ăn được rồi. Bác công làm chân rồi. Bác công qua chân rồi. Rửa qua Zalo là công việc máu phản lệ thế. Công máu thèm luôn. Người khác chơi lại luôn. Đây là cái ảnh mà thôi. Đây. T cá tê những lần ngồi ngủ vừa làm những mặn luôn. Ăn cay không ăn được, không hiểu sao chưa rượu yếu. Xung quanh đến người rồi.
Con xuống nhé.
Trời em ăn nó từ cái nào?
Quạt thôi không? Quạt thôi. Quạt đi. Quạt cho nó lên mà lấy nước nó đủ. Chịu rồi.
Đủ combo.
Em nói là bệ.
Nãy ông Nam Bùi như bảo con mình nghiêu sinh đủ mẹ chém chết rồi lợn này. Khi bằng cắn của mình nó
Ok
sạch thôi.
đi em đi massage nhé. Em đây. Đợi em tẹo.
Còn lần này em rất tự hỏi ông trên hết bao
tiền. Ông vừa bảo rồi. Đưa tiền anh vừa chuyển vừa Tuấn chuyển rồi. Đưa anh 1 triệu 1.350.000. Hả?
Và em đi.
tự nhiên là
Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn. Mình xin kết thúc video tại đây. Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi kênh của mình. Thank you các bạn nhé.